Welcome to Cloud Infrastructure and Services. This is Dr. V. Naresh. Today we are discussing about different AWS database services offered by Amazon Web Services. So if you can see, there are various number of database services available in Amazon Web Services. If you can see, Amazon Relational Database Services, Key Value Services, In-Memory Services, a Document Service, Wide Column Services, Graph Service, Time Series Services, Ledger Services. See, before we step into what exactly mean by these different types of database services, first we'll understand what do you mean by database. As we know, a database is a collection of individual data items which is stored in a highly structured manner, is usually called as a database services. And in this database, we can consider it as a table, where a table stores tables and columns. So usually I can take a particular database, for example, in the form of a table, right? So let me take, it is an example of a table, right? A table consists of rows and columns. Okay, these are all the rows and these are all the columns. So a database is a collection of an individual items which can be called in the form of attributes, fields, various kinds of records we can call it as. If at all these are going to be considered as in the form of structured manner, okay, so we will be easily can able to access that particular data. Whenever we like to fetch the data from the database, it would be very easy and convenient for us. So that was the procedure where we have in the database management systems. So it also provides an ability to store a large amount of information, right? That too in the form of attributes, fields or the records, and we can easily able to access that particular information, and we need to also take care of the security of that particular data. Basically, the database is going to be classified into two different types. One is a relational database and another one is non-relational database. So let us see one after the other, right? So in this, what we are doing is we are trying to understanding about different types of database services. Okay, so if you can see, here you can see a relational database service. What do you mean by relational database services? Whenever the data is going to be stored in the database, the data is arranged in the form of structured manner, is usually considered as data in the form of a relational database base, where the particular data is going to be maintaining a particular structure and also going to maintain the relation between the storage, right? So for an example, if you can see a spreadsheet, usually we follow that to store our information in the form of Excel, is the best suitable example for the relational database. And this is also a table, and this consists of different types of worksheets and all these combination of rows and the columns. Now let us see how Amazon Web Services is offering different types of database services in the form of a relational database. So if you see RDS, relational database services, as you can see, all these are an examples of relational databases. All these are the relational databases. Okay, so you can see SQL Server and RKIL, also MySQL Server, PostgreSQL, Aurora, MariaDB, also we have a Redshift, okay, and relational database with the help of MySQL, exclusively offered in AWS with the workbench connectivity. We can make sure our data is going to be stored in the form of a relational, that too called as a structured query languages. In easy manner, if you want to understand, all the structured query languages are maintained in the relational database. Okay, so these are the various examples of database services we have. Let us see one after the other. Okay, so now let us see first one, that is SQL Server. SQL Server is a relational database developed by Microsoft, and this is easy to set up, to perform, and to operate, to scale to the different server deployments in the cloud. With the help of Amazon RDS, we can add multiple editions of SQL servers such as 2008, R2, 2012, 2014, 2016, 2017, sizable, cost-effective and resizable compute capacities. It's free. You can managing the time-consuming database administration tasks such as provisioning backups, software patches, monitoring and hardware scales. So this particular service is offered by Amazon Web Services and going to be used in the AWS whenever we are trying to store the particular data, when we are connecting to the instance of a particular AWS virtual machine. Okay, so coming to, we have RKIL. RKIL is one of the popular database provided by Oracle, and this is also one of the mostly popular relational database management service, and this can also be connected to Amazon RDS. Next we have MySQL, a most useful open source relational database. We can able to download it easily, and we can try to store the data and try to connect to our projects both on premises as well as cloud, right? So next we have PostgreSQL. This PostgreSQL is exclusively useful for connecting with the Amazon RDS, which is one of the useful database for the developers and startups. Whereas we have Aurora combination with the MySQL and PostgreSQL. These two are the databases can able to connect to this particular Aurora for fully managing database services. MariaDB, we have MariaDB is also an open source relation database developed by MySQL, and this can also be integrated with RDS, and we can also deploy the databases with very minimal cost effective and resizable hardware capacity. We can able to do it with the RDS. Next, coming to non-relational databases, which we also shortly call it as NoSQL. NoSQL stands for not only SQL. Okay, so if you can see, a non-relational database is a database that does not follow the relational database model provided by the relational database management system. It is a NoSQL database. We have seen steady growth in non-relational database with the rise in big data applications. We have a non-relational database. Inside the database we have a collection. Inside a collection we have got a document, and inside a document we have a key pair value. If you talk in a relational sense, then collection is a table, in the document is a row, and row consists of key and value. Because if you can see, in the relational database everything is in a structured manner. Okay, for example, if we can store an information of a particular student of a school, we need to enter the details of the student in the tabular manner, where the student consists of a roll number, and name, as well as you do have a courses selected by and the rank that you have secured in the course. This is how the record is been stored in particular data, right? So here a roll number is an identity here for to find out an individual student who has been stored his values there, right? So there is no question of extending further fields in terms of rows and columns, and these relational going to be maintained and attached to all the fields in this particular record, whereas in the non-relational database with any length of items we can able to add, and that too in the NoSQL all the information is stored in the form of key value, which will be stored against to that particular database in the form of JSON format. Okay, so non-relational database records are stored in the form of JSON formats. This is the point we are talking about. Each book item such as book ID, book title, edition number, author ID, author name is stored as attribute in the document. Okay, so that's what actually is discussing about structured and non-structured. If you want to know more details about a structured query language and no structured query language, we are exclusively thinking about structured data can be stored in the table, as well as NoSQL, that is non-relational database, is going to be stored in the JSON format, and relational databases are static in nature, whereas non-relational databases are flexible, which are completely dynamic enough, and we have a schema which is rigid and bound to a relational databases, whereas these non-relational databases are non-rigid as well as those are very flexible in nature. So the relational database, if you see, which is very complicated to develop a particular design, whereas non-relational we don't require such things to be done and easily available for the distributed environment, because in the cloud basically we will see distributed environment. So these non-relational databases are more flexible for a distributed environment, right? So that is the reason why I would like to tell you some of the services offered by Amazon Web Services, both in relational as well as non-relational databases. So if you can see this particular slide, which talks about both the relational and non-relational database services offered. Okay, the first one, if you see this one, this is a relational, and the rest of all are non-relational databases. Here a data is going to be stored in the form of table. Database is going to be stored in the form of table. Let me take a minute. Yeah, this particular slide mostly talking in detailed information about all the services offered by Amazon Web Services in the form of database services. You see relational and non-relational. In the relational, everything is like a table manner, which refers and integrity, acid properties transaction schema and write. Atomicity as well as consistency, isolation and durability is the one main property that we have in the form of relational databases. That's why AWS services are mainly like RDS, which combination of MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL or not, all the list of MySQL, SQL services, all the list which I have mentioned here all comes under into RDS, relational databases. We can create an EC2 and connect that with the RDS in the form of MySQL, okay, or MariaDB, or in the form of Aurora. It's a combination of PostgreSQL and MySQL, like that, which can use cases services are like lift shift as well as ERP or customer relation management, CRMs, finance. For all these relational databases are going to be maintained. Coming to the non-relational, that is non-structured, not only structured query languages, is a combination of the data going to be stored in the form of collections, documents, key values, in memory, graph, time series, ledger, wide columns. Let us see key value. Key value best example is DynamoDB. Okay, so Amazon DynamoDB is the best suitable example for non-relational key value pair, where it going to be store the information in a distributive nature. Okay, so key and value both, if you see this table is the best example, if you can understand, is where the first column consists of key and the second column consists of the value. So key value is going to be attached and the entire information is stored in the form of JSON. In the JSON is very easy way of understanding the structure. Okay, so this is a highly throughput, low latency, reads and writes endless scales, and the use cases for this DynamoDB are real-time bidding, shopping cart, social product catalog, customer preferences. All these comes under into the DynamoDB, and items we are calling here, all the items are going to be stored in this particular key value format. Coming to the most useful database service offered very recently, that is document. We call it as AWS Document DB, and this Document DB is useful for store documents and quickly access querying on any attributes, and these use cases are content management and personalization mobile. Coming to in memory, we have very user friendly service offered by Amazon Web Services, that is Elastic Cache, where Elastic Cache is performing for both for memory as well as for the Redis. Okay, so these two things can be covered for Elastic Cache. We usually work for Elastic Cache Redis. Okay, in memory, that is query by key with the microsecond latency, very useful, and use cases are ledger boards, real-time analytics and caching. We will be looking after these demos in the further sessions. Okay, and coming to the graph, and this is how exactly the information is going to be stored, and quickly and easily create and navigate relationships between the data. This is also one of the most frequently asked question in examinations, that is Neptune. So this is mostly useful for the fraud detection, social networking and recommendation engage. And next, coming to a time series, this is called for the time series famous collection, store and process data and sequenced by time mostly, and very popularly used in the IoT, Internet of Things applications and event tracking. Coming to the another important database offered by Amazon Web Services is Ledger, mostly in blockchain technologies. This ledger is going to be used. We cannot manipulate in between because it is completely immutable, and we cannot interfere anything inside the chain. So most popularly used QLDB database service is offered again by Amazon Web Services. Similarly, we do have wide column, one of the very latest database service called key spaces, okay, which use cases are something like low latency applications building and leverage open sources and migrate Cassandra to the cloud. So like this we are having these many number of database services offered by Amazon Web Services, and if you can see we do have a demo also, and this demo hands-on session will be covered during the practicals. I will just show you the procedure here. Basically we will be opening Amazon Web Services. We will be logging into aws.amazon.com, login with our credentials. Once we log into the credentials, we will go to the services, then type the RDS, you can see here, which is one of the relational database service offered in Amazon Web Services. Then we will go to the RDS. Once we go to the RDS, top right corner we will be having a create a database, and once we create the database, we have a different engines available here as I told you in the slide. Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, like all these are inside the AWS we are talking about. So you can select any one. I have selected MySQL, and then we can select the next, and we have to consider which is a free tier, and we have to give the name, and we have to give the username and password. We have to note down somewhere in our local system because it is more important when we are connecting to that particular RDS. So first of all we are creating a database. After creating this database, we are connecting this to the client, any one of the client, okay. If you can see here, so we have database name options here. We can give any name like my database, and the port number always remember this is fixed. 3306 is the fixed database name for RDS, okay. And we can give parameter group, and it is completely optional. And next we have IAM, that is identity and access management, and we have to select because we would like to connect directly within a client. So RDS client is going to connect it, right, to store the information. So we need to make sure one role is available there, right. So this is how the database is going to be created. Once database created, then immediately we should switch to EC2 instances, and that procedure also I will tell you. Simply we have to go to the services. Once we go to the services, we have to click into the EC2. Once we click on EC2, there are 7 different steps we have, which will ask you type the name of the instance. Like this page, it will just ask the name of the instance, how many number of instances you want. I just wanted one because aws.amazon.com is providing a free tier service which is completely not free. It is 12 months free, so that too with the terms and conditions. As per the EC2 terms and conditions, EC2 is providing with the T2 micro instance type, okay. That too number of instances are very limited, okay. Totally altogether 720 hours it is going to give free per 1 month, okay. So we should be very careful while we are launching any instance, right. So immediately once you launch the instance, then connect it to the database. Once the work completed, then immediately terminate the database as well as terminate the EC2 instances, okay. Otherwise you will incur some more charges and it will be ended up with loss, okay. So that is the reason why I instruct everybody who follows my lecture, immediately after doing this procedure of hands-on in the Amazon Web Services, always remember, create an instance, complete the work, then terminate it, okay. Don't leave that instance like running state, okay. Yeah, so very simple network we have to select, that is the default, and the subnet we have to select. We have to give auto assign IP because we need an identity in the form of IP, and all the rest are optional. And before that we should also make sure one of the IAM role which we have given to the RDS, the same role we have to give here. Additional tags completely optional here. Then configuration security group, make sure you are going to give 3306, okay, that is the port number of the RDS. So if not now, you can also give it later. So once it is connected, then we can just simply use these commands. With the help of these commands, we can able to connect to our RDS. Very simple. We have to give the username, we have to give the password, and we have to make sure which instance you would like to connect to this particular EC2. All the steps are very clearly mentioned here in this presentation. It's pretty easy for you guys to work on this. Okay, so I wish you all the best, and we can also work on different database services along with this, like we do work with the DynamoDB. Once the relational database is completed, then we can switch to non-relational database, that is called DynamoDB. So DynamoDB is also providing two different ways of storages for reading and writing capabilities. One is provisioned and on demand. Anything you can select based on the requirement, which is completely, it is auto scaling. Like that, different databases we have. We will look into all the databases, memory, memcached and Redis. So Redis is most useful one, like that Elastic Cache, in memory, time series, ledger. All those are going to be discussed in this in practical. Okay, so I congratulate you all, and thank you. We will meet in the next session, and these are the references I have used for preparing this presentation. Thank you. Have a nice day.